The third episode of Skeleton Crew is here, and it feels consistent with the two premiere episodes. I'm still enjoying the series, but I don't love it yet. I like its sense of adventure and fun, and I really like the observatory moon and Kim that we meet this episode. I really like some of the revelations and answers we were given, but in my opinion, it does suffer from the similar pacing and structure problems that many other streaming series have fallen into. So let's get into the episode scene by scene. Everything starts on At Aden, which I'm very happy about. I may not be crazy about its suburban aesthetic, but I love thinking about the weird stuff happening there, and we dive into it even more in the very first scene. The safety droid informs all the parents that there's nothing anyone can do to help find the kids because they illegally left the barrier, and the supervisor doesn't want to, quote, risk any communication. Why is that risky? We find out more about that later, and I'm glad that mystery isn't dragged out too much, but I did enjoy the breadcrumbs dropped along the way. And I like that At Aden's government is a little sinister, getting in the way of helping children. But why? Do they know the truth, or are they in the dark just as much as the parents? I also want to point out something I may have missed if the subtitles weren't on, but KB's moms mention losing contact with her life monitor and later say she has urgent medical needs. I still think we need more screen time with KB to explore who she is and what she wants, but I think this is a good potential avenue that sets her apart from the other kids and could lead to some obstacles for her to overcome. Back at Port Borgo, the kids escape with Jod. I like that they continue to dive right into some questions raised by the previous episode. Is Jod truly Force-sensitive, or is it all a ruse? I think he does have the Force, especially after tricking the guards like Obi-Wan, but not all the kids trust him. Of course Wim does, because he's Wim, and he wants Jod to be a Jedi, but Fern and KB are less sure. I'm glad the kids didn't all trust him right away. His made-up platitudes about the Force providing and telling Wim he knows much of the Force were funny, but I got a big laugh at him knocking out a guard right as Wim proudly claims that the Jedi are keepers of peace. They all get to the ship, but the kids demand Jod go back for SM-33. Pacing-wise, this back and forth felt a little strange to me, but it didn't take up too much time, and I appreciate that we got a scene with Jod alone, where we get confirmation that he is in fact Captain Silvo from the first episode. That's not a surprise, but I'm always glad when something that feels obvious isn't stretched out, and I'll never say no to some fun battle droid comedy. Actually, most of the comedy is landing for me in this series so far, like the kids arguing about whether or not their new friend is a Jedi while you can see a fight starting off in the distance and it's getting closer. The ship getting trapped on the fuel line was a little too familiar to Poe and Finn doing the same thing escaping in the First Order TIE Fighter, but I really liked their escape into hyperspace causing a bunch of destruction because of the fuel line. Seeing pirates getting messed up is just fun. Silvo makes some food and stuffs his face first while the kids' stomachs growl, but he does leave them some to eat, so there's obviously this selfish side of him because he's a pirate, but he's not completely without a heart. He wanders off and stares at a pirate skeleton who was stabbed in a duel by one of his old crewmates. This is where the life of a selfish, greedy pirate will lead, dead and probably killed over some gold. I assume Silvo will have a change of heart over the course of the show thanks to the kids, but he also might help Wim change as well, because Wim wants a romanticized life of pirate adventure. I think he prefers Jedi stories, but he'll take what he can get. Experiencing the galaxy for what it truly is will help him grow up, as Fern told him to do in the first episode. Speaking of growth, I think Neil is showing some already. When he first met the rat that lives in SM-33's eye, he was terrified. Now he's really concerned for the critter, making sure Silvo saved it from Port Borgo and even feeding it some of his food. He's getting over some of his fears, and he's also the one that gets all the kids to start thinking about what's going on back home. They know their parents are analysts, but what do they analyze? They all guess it must have something to do with money or the supposed eternal treasure found at Aden. Silvo takes them all to a moon orbiting a great-looking gas giant, and the music gets all trippy. I liked that a lot, and I think this environment looks awesome. I assume it was shot on the volume, and I said this last week, but I think this show has been looking visually great. I was not a fan of the volume's use in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but in Skeleton Crew, it's really working for me. That might be because the series got delayed a year, so maybe there was more time to really get everything looking right. They arrive at Silvo's supposed friend's place. Her name is Kim, and she knows him as Crimson Jack, which is the name of another Star Wars pirate from the old 70s Marvel Star Wars comics. He also appears in the canon Halcyon Legacy comics that take place during the sequel trilogy movies. Kim's observatory set is really cool, and I like her character design too. She explains that At-Aten was purposely hidden away during the time of the Old Republic, well over 1,000 years before the events of this series, at least 1,000 years before the prequels. At-Aten was one of the jewels of the Old Republic, a planet of wonders kept hidden for their protection. Of the 9 worlds, At-Aten is the only one that remains. I really like this. The jewels of the Old Republic are new to Star Wars lore as far as I know, but I think it's cool. It's also one of the most specific pieces of Old Republic lore we know about that's canon. Part of me is just hungry for any mention of the Old Republic. Although, if At-Aten has truly been hidden away for over 1,000 years, that has some funny implications for what we've seen so far. I guess that means the RX series pilot droid is a very old design. That also means the acrobatics hologram Neil's siblings were watching that's from the holiday special is very old as well. Unless the government there is able to pull transmissions or droid schematics off the HoloNet, I don't know yet. Anyway, Kim is able to narrow down the location of At-Aten and maybe provide the actual coordinates, but she also calls in the New Republic to help save the kids from Silvo. He claims the New Republic won't help the kids get home, which I'm sure they actually would, but there's no way for them to know that. They have no idea what's going on right now, but KB is able to get at least some of the truth out of Silvo. He admits he's not a Jedi, and I do think he's telling the truth when he tells the kids he is lost and alone. I think he's trying to gain sympathy points and guilt them into letting him continue on to At-Aten, but I also think he's being honest, even if it's kind of accidental. Nobody even knows his real name. Maybe it's Silvo, but I doubt it. He's alone because he lost his crew. He lost his crew because they were only loyal to him if he provided them with riches. So he and the pirates are morally lost as well. Silvo has a chance to gain a real crew with real loyalty in the form of the kids by helping them regain something that's actually important, their families. The escape from the observatory moon was fun. It was a weird feeling seeing Wim and Fern open fire on the good guys, but again, they have no idea who the good guys are. Silvo calls them Kim's goons, and Neil believes him. KB puts the coordinates into the hyperdrive and they all take off. Whether or not those are the right coordinates or if the ship actually makes it there remains to be seen. I don't think they'll be getting home so easily, and the ship will probably need another pit stop or two. I think the kids will need to visit some other planets to see that life in the galaxy isn't the same as it is in their literal protected bubble. And even though I think it's strange seeing the suburbs in Star Wars, I do think that's the point. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up fairly sheltered. Getting into college was a huge wake-up call for me. Stepping outside of the bubble of my small town and taking my first steps into a larger world meant meeting lots of different people from different walks of life. Getting out of college and into the workforce and traveling the world showed me new perspectives. I think the kids will see how life is on tougher planets, maybe for other kids their age. And through that, they will also learn to question authority in a way that their parents so far haven't. Meanwhile, I think we're going to get a subplot with Wendell and Farah and the other parents doing the same thing. The supervisor isn't doing anything to help them, so they'll have to take matters into their own hands. I like the potential for all those story beats, but right now I am getting that feeling I get with a lot of Disney Plus and streaming series. These 3 episodes together feel like a solid first third of a movie. I think the episode endings in general have felt more satisfying than how many episodes of The Acolyte ended. It feels like we're at least reaching new plot beats at the end of every episode, but the characters aren't making a ton of progression. The Penguin has been on my mind since it recently wrapped up. It was also 8 episodes, but each one felt very deliberate and the runtimes were longer. The plot moved along, but we also learned a lot about several characters every episode. I might change my mind as Skeleton Crew goes on, but right now I'm getting a similar vibe to many streaming series, that the episodes are almost cut up into pieces after the fact rather than written very purposefully to have their own beginnings, middles, and ends. I will say I'm glad KB got more screen time this episode. She at least got a lot to do. I still feel like I understand her character and her wants and hopes and dreams the least out of the 5 main characters. Now that we know she has a medical issue, I feel like there could have been an easy way to establish that her moms are overprotective of her, and that's why she does reckless things with Fern, so maybe she just wants a little bit of independence. That would work fine, but I think it's odd we haven't been more clear about it. But that's all I've got to say about Skeleton Crew's 3rd episode. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page for our video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as they release. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.